اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. نحمده على هدايته ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه من سيئات أعمالنا، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين محمد وعلى آله الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين. اللهم صل
على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
Sisters and brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I start with offering my congratulations on the anniversary of the birth of Imam Hasan Al Askari alayhi salatu wassalam. May Allah grant us the honor of being among the true followers of Ahlul Bayt, inshallah. عن الامام الحسن العسكري انه قال: اوصيكم بتقوى الله والورع في دينكم والاجتهاد اليه وصدق الحديث واداء الامانه الى من ائتمنكم من بر وفاجر وطول السجود وحسن الجواب، فبهذا جاء محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. I command you to be God conscious. Be devout and pious in your faith and struggle to submit to the command of Allah. Be truthful in your speech. Return what you have been entrusted with to whoever has trusted you with them, no matter whether they are faithful or not. Don't rush in your prostration and sujood. Take your time in essence. Be conscious of your good neighbors. These are some of the issues that constitute the basic faith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent the Holy Prophet. The hadith is well known and is considered to be probably among the last few hadith from Imam Hasan Al Askari before his martyrdom. According to the historians, they say 2 or 3 days before the martyrdom of Imam Hasan Al Askari, between 40 or 42 individuals, the elite disciples, went to see him and had a number of questions that they asked. And at the end, one of the fundamental questions or the challenges of that time, they presented to the Imam: who is going to lead the Shia community after the departure of Imam Hasan Al Askari? If you read the history of Imam Hasan Al Askari, particularly around at least Imam Al Hadi, and then we move on, the notion of a clear understanding of Imam and the role of Imam, the responsibility of Imamah, was weak within the Shia community. They were confused as exactly who has, because of the number of people they were claiming to be Imams at that time. So when these people come to Imam Hasan Al Askari and they go through the list of questions that they have, religious, theological, Imam responds to them. At the end, they present the essential question: could you tell us who's going to lead us after you depart? At that particular moment, Imam goes inside the house and brings his son, the living Imam, who happened to be about 5 years old, and points to him and he says, after me, he is going to be your leader. And ultimately, by the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will be able to establish justice on earth and remove injustice from earth. Then this hadith is part of what he left them with, which is a will, a testament. It's a lengthy hadith that the Imam leaves them with it, that addresses, this lengthy hadith addresses the conditions necessary for establishment of a healthy social structure in society. I need to digress a little bit and focus on another issue and then come back to this point. From the beginning of the proclamation of the Holy Prophet, or Risala of the Holy Prophet, one of the fundamental principle or challenge that the Holy Prophet was presented with, how do you take this message and propagate it, what we call in this language, tabligh and da'wah, propagate it to those who have nothing in common with the faith and with the da'wah, with the idea. Literally, tabligh, how do you take, whether it's an ideology or a way of thinking, what's the best method, successful method, a working method that you can take and expose this idea, preach that to not just to the few people who are converted, to those who are non-converted outside the circle. And this is one of the challenge that not only the Holy Prophet was faced with, the Imams were faced with after, even now we are faced with it. When the society is in turbulent condition, the prevailing ideas, conflicting ideas, challenging ideas are all around. How do we present Islam, true Islam? We don't need even to go that far and talk about presenting Islam, the true Islam, on a small scale. We have a center. How do we present the center and make it, or at least knowable to other people so they would attend? We tend to, this is where we fail. The notion of what we call marketing and public relation, to be able to deal with other people and attract them in. We try to focus primarily on preaching to the convert. 10 people, 20 people, these are the people that constantly come, and our marketing is structured, or tabligh and da'wah is structured to these 20 people alone. We haven't come up with a unique idea that would take this beyond this circle. That was the challenge that the Holy Prophet faced, the Holy A'immah faced, and coming down to this day. The Holy Prophet used to have two characters that Quran talks about. إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, that unique ethical and moral value, and the humbleness that would listen to the others when they come in. كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَنْفَضُّوا. If you were hard-headed, your heart was somehow hardened, and you didn't listen to these people when they came in, you didn't comfort them, they would have all run away. So with regard to the Holy Prophet, these characteristics as a leader of the community made it easy for people. The humility, akhlaq, ethical and moral code that he embodied and presented, typified. Ahlul Bayt come after the demise of the Holy Prophet, challenged by the same thing. How do they take, in a contesting world, that there are so many ideas, Bani Umayyah publicizes, and they have successful marketing and tabligh and da'wah. And they are able to take over even the elite of Kufa. A couple of weeks ago, we commemorated the Tawabin movement. Who were Tawabin? The repenters. Repenters were the elite within Ahlul Bayt followers that either fell silent or they fell victim to the marketing ploys of Bani Umayyah. Why Amir al-Mu'mineen literally talks to people of Mecca and to meet people of Kufa and says, I wish Muawiyah exchanges 10 of you for one of his followers. باجتماعهم على باطلهم وتفرقكم عن حق. Your leader exemplifies the faith, truthfulness and haqq, and yet you are divided. You look like the camels that are, when I'm trying to organize the left, the right goes out of order. I try to organize the right, the left goes out of order. So A'imma tried as much as they could to organize to come up with a unique methodology or a strategy of propagation, da'wah of Islam. This hadith, and there are a number of other hadith similar to it, is not just purely within the context of, say, personal piety. It's trying to tell you that we as Shias are responsible to be somehow God conscious, wara' and devout and pious in our faith, submit to the command of Allah. If we go back to the hadith and we see what the Imam is trying to explain, first what he does, he talks about the fact that the society is in a turbulent situation. What does he say? Just look around you and see the fitna. There are too many that challenges the society. And this fitan and the challenges have led to confusion within the community. Those who are given the responsibility of the leadership, they don't deserve it because they don't pitify and they don't represent the values of Islam. Those who are in charge, instead of paying attention to the people, they spend Baytul Mal on themselves and the wealth of themselves. The Amwal, Baytul Mal, that is supposed to be spent on the poor and the needy and the destitute are wasted by whoever is in charge. Ahl al-Dhimma, Imam talks about this, non-Muslims that are under treaty with Islam, they pay dhimma and they are supposed to be protected by Islam. They have become judges and they give fatwa and opinion against Muslims. Ru'asa al-Tawa'if, these are, call them the leaders of tribes, could be bought by money that would given to them by those who are in charge. Nobody is thinking about the poor and the needy and the destitute within the society. Everybody, this greed is taken over. Paints a gloomy picture of the society, but if we focus on this, we see other Imams before Imam Hasan Al Askari, they did the same thing. We go back to Karbala. Didn't Imam Hussein, through slogans that he talked about the moment he moved from Medina until he got to Kufa, talked about the failure of the society? ألا ترون إن الحق لا يعمل به وأن الباطل لا ينهى عنه. That's just one example. Amir al-Mu'mineen in one of the khutbah and the sermon of Nahj al-Balagha said, ألا وإن بليتكم قد عادت. You've gone back to the old Jahiliyyah. The mindset has gone back to the Jahiliyyah. So this is nothing new. But the difference is, during the presence of the Imam, the leadership and the responsibility is exemplified by the Imam. Imam leads and the Muslim community or the Shia is following it. What Imam in the last meeting, practically the last meeting before his martyrdom, is telling the elite within the society that there is a fundamental shift is going to take place. Imam is no longer going to be visible. The responsibility of the da'wah and tabligh has fallen on your shoulder. The elite of the society, the scholars. Da'wah and tabligh is no longer, because during the Imams and the Holy Prophet you have a living example, a role model. But when the Imam is absent, the role model is absent. Imam is telling these elite people, if you want to succeed, if you want to have a strategy that would work in propagating Islam and bringing people to Islam, start from yourself. You have to be behaving in a manner that the dichotomy between action and word no longer exists. You can't talk about justice in Islam, but if there is no justice in our life. You can't talk about values, moral and ethical principles in Islam if we don't practice any of those values. There is a disconnect. So Imam is reminding them, أوصيكم بتقوى الله والورع في دينكم. Now the Imam is going to be absent. You are going to be responsible for propagation of Islam, and you will not succeed. Propagation of Islam is not word, is action. The first step is to embody those values that you are going to talk about. We stand behind these podiums or members and we talk about how well or how good Islam is, but we don't practice it in our life. Why? Because it's the word. We think that tabligh is primarily word. Imam says no. Islam, tabligh and da'wah of Islam starts with the way we present ourselves to everybody else. If we present the value, there is a hadith from Imam Sadiq salawatullah salamu alayhi that talks about the same thing. This is a hadith, the end of the hadith from Imam Hasan Al Askari. فَإِنَّ الرَّجُلَ مِنْكُمْ إِذَا وَرَعَ فِي دِينِهِ وَصَدَقَ فِي حَدِيثِهِ وَأَدَّى الْأَمَانَةَ وَحَسَّنَ خُلْقَهُ مع النَّاسِ قِيلَ هَذَا شِيعِيٌّ فَيُسِرُّنِي ذَلِكَ. When you go around, how you present yourself, how you behave ultimately matters for the Imam. Imam wants you to go out and present yourself in your deed, action, word, in a manner that when people just look at you, they say, he or she represents the value of Madhab al-Ja'fari. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq says the same thing, but with a slight difference. قِيلَ هَذَا جَعْفَرِيٌّ, the same beginning, فَيَسُرُّنِي ذَلِكَ وَيَدْخُلُ عَلَيَّ مِنْهُ السُّرُورِ. It makes me happy when you go out and present yourself fully in a manner that you reflect the values, the moral principles that I stand for. وَقِيلَ هَذَا أَدَبُ جَعْفَرٍ. وَإِذَا كَانَ عَلَى غَيْرِ ذَلِكَ. If there is a challenge, a dichotomy, a disconnect between what you say and what you do, دَخَلَ عَلَيَّ بَلَاؤُهُ وَعَارُهُ وَقِيلَ هَذَا أَدَبُ جَعْفَرٍ. Then you are bringing curse to us, Ahlul Bayt. So what Imam is trying to do, Imam Hasan Al Askari, in another word, اتقوا الله وكونوا زينا. Bring honor and dignity to us. ولا تكونوا شيئا جروا إلينا كل مودة. By your behavior, people fall in love with Ahlul Bayt. Let me give you an example. Shaikh Ibrahim Kazerooni, the Nigerian scholar, Sunni in origin, goes to Qom during the life of Marhum Imam and sits with him. In one meeting, that's it, he comes out totally changed. When they asked him later, he said, when I saw a character, his slippers are torn. When he wants tea, he stands up and goes into the kitchen and makes his own tea, and not only bring out tea for himself, he brings out tea for everybody else that is sitting there. He sits with everybody else, eats with everybody else, has no humble like everybody else. He typifies the values of Ahlul Bayt. This is just one example here. Now we are living in a turbulent world, contesting ideas left, right and center. Not only from Sunnis or anybody else, no. All ideas being presented. Our children are bombarded with ideas. If they see the difference between what we say and what we behave, naturally they are not going to accept this. You tell your child don't lie, but you are openly lie in front of him or her. Tell the truth, you don't tell the, or I don't tell the truth. Talk about justice, fairness and so on, and I as a husband, I as a father, am not fair and or just towards my family, let alone everybody else. You make a list of all moral characters, ghiba, tuhma and so on. You tell your child don't do it, but I violate every single one of them. Don't expect our children with this kind of contradiction to come out to be Salman Farsi or Abu Dhar. If you tell them don't look at this while you late at night sit and watch these violent films, naturally they are going to see it. So Imam says, اتقوا الله وكونوا زينا ولا تكونوا شيئا جروا إلينا كل مودة وادفعوا عنا كل قبيح. Anything that violates or discredits our character, it's your responsibility to move them away. فإنه ما قيل فينا من حسن فنحن أهله وما قيل فينا من سوء فما نحن كذلك. If your behavior, the Shia behavior, ultimately leads to the fact that there is a disconnect between the society and Ahlul Bayt, it's not the fault of Ahlul Bayt, it's our fault. We took up the responsibility, the mantle of going out and propagating about Islam. Well, none of the original characters exist, or most of them, they are absent. Amir al-Mu'mineen in one of the khutbah of Taj al-Balagha says, I never called you to do something, concept of Amr bil Ma'ruf and Nahy anil Munkar, I never called you to do something unless I was the first one who did it. And I never asked you to stop from doing something unless I was the first one who stopped from doing it. So my word and action, they were in harmony. There is a synthesis. But if we talk is cheap. We want to try and invite people. We have to develop some kind of a strategy, a coherent strategy that brings other people, other Muslims in, not necessarily Shias, the Sunnis, as well as others, into the center, or bigger scale. How do we do it? First, we start on ourselves. When Imam talks about فإن الرجل منكم إذا ورع في دينه وصدق في حديثه وأدى الأمانة وحسن خلقه من الناس قيل هذا شيعتي فيصير. Imam is no longer there. the example, the role model is no longer there. We are the one who's supposed to become the role model and then take the mantle, the responsibility of going out and coming up with a strategy that works, do da'wah and so on. What is da'wah? What is tabligh? Is nothing more than a structured program created to attract the widest audience. Now, in the ideological sense, the most effective, potent strategy that brings people into the faith. And nothing is more effective, nothing is more potent than first starting from ourselves. We bring people in, but we have to be fulfilling those fundamental principles. So here, Imam Hasan Al Askari is not just talking about some kind of pious lifestyle that, yes, it's necessary, but it's talking in the context of a turbulent life that we live in here. How do we go about presenting Islam? First, we really need to understand what are our responsibilities. جروا إلينا كل مودة. Ultimately, this is our response, to bring honor to Ahlul Bayt and remove dishonor. If there are people, some people that these days you go online and all kinds of ideas being presented against Ahlul Bayt, in one way or the other. The failure is from us. So Imam is telling us, with the closeness of the time of Ghibat al-Sughra and the absence of the Imam, the responsibility of tabligh, da'wah, and so on is on our shoulders, on the elite shoulder. Now we have to become the role model for the rest of the society to look up to and naturally be attracted towards Islam. May Allah help us, inshallah. This is a hard struggle. It's not going to be easy. Fighting shaitan, nafs al-ammara, and changing things, it's hard. But ultimately, if we don't do it, if you don't do it for the sake of ourselves, do it for the sake of our children. Because ultimately, if our children grow older and they reach the age of adolescence, and deep down they don't have that necessary experience and resources to be able to tap into, very quickly they would go astray. The younger generation that we see around. That's the responsibility that we have. Tabligh about Islam, da'wah about Islam, marketing about Islam, all starts by making ourselves fit for that job. May Allah help us, inshallah. And please, as I was coming up here, a friend of mine called me and he said that his sister just passed away, and asked all of us to recite first Surah Al-Fatiha for the soul of the recently departed, as well as Amman Yujib, for may Allah grant speedy recovery to a number of people that have asked for help. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Let's do Amman Yujib.